Hello. This is a story about my dad that happened about a year ago. He's a very hardworking, honest, introverted, and not good with confrontation. My dad no longer needed the boat. He bought it several years back, but we rarely use it. This was mainly due to the fact that we were always busy during the summer with going camping and went to the beach. But each time we never used the boat for whatever reason. So at this point, my dad just wanted to sell it for what he could get. He then placed an ad on Craigslist. As soon as the ad was placed on Craigslist, my dad got quite a few calls and texts. He listed his boat for pretty cheap. He didn't really use it much, and he's very meticulous about how he takes care of his belongings. He got a call from an older couple who wanted the boat for their weekend trips, and he told them to come on down. Then he got a text from the entitled parent. Entitled parent, is the boat still available? My dad, yes, it's still available. It's first come, first serve. Our address is X. I will be there in 45 minutes. Hold it for me. I can't guarantee we can hold the boat for you since it's first come, first serve. But if you get here before the others, we can sell it to you then. I'm pretty sure you can already tell what's going to happen next. The lovely old couple came 15 minutes after the entitled parent texted my dad, and they took a look at the boat, and they fell in love with it at first sight. They couldn't believe the conditions of the boat and how pristine/clean it was. My dad is shocked that they want to buy it right away. They agreed to a price. The old couple backed up their car near where you hitch the boat, and they went inside to do the paperwork. They finished the paperwork, and the couple is about to hitch up the boat. Then the entitled parent and his family rolled up to my dad's house. What is going on? Why are you selling my boat? My dad, I texted you before. It was first come, first serve. I drove 3 hours to come here and pick up this boat, and I'm not going to leave empty-handed. My daughters deserve this. You're going to ruin their whole day. You should have texted me that you sold it. We were just finishing up the paperwork. I don't know what else to tell you. The entitled parent got mad and kept sizing up my dad during this arrangement, while my stepmom was ushering the lovely old couple to take the boat and leave since it was rightfully theirs. The entitled parent saw what she's doing and signaled his wife to try to stop my stepmom from helping the old couple. Luckily, the old couple were in the process of driving away, so there wasn't much they could do. You owe my family a boat? The entitled parent spits his chewing tobacco on my stepmom's brand new Volkswagen Beetle. She has always wanted a Beetle and was finally able to afford one after saving up. My dad, someone who's not good with confrontation, snapped, "You don't treat me like this on my own property," disrespecting my wife and I. You knew very well what you were getting into with this Craigslist ad. Meanwhile, my stepmom starts to walk over near where the entitled parent's wife and kids were. They were just as bad as the entitled parent. Entitled parent to the mother. We texted you 45 minutes ago. You should have told us not to come if you weren't going to sell us the boat. You ruined our daughter's vacation. We were going to take it out to the lake and have a good time. Now you ruined it. My stepmother tries to be polite and courteous. At this point, she doesn't know what has happened to her car yet. I'm sorry, but the Craigslist had stated it was first come, first serve. We're sorry, but they were first. Well, you should pay us for coming all the way for the gas and time spent trying to pick up our boat. It's the least you could do. We aren't going to do that. Again, we do apologize for this, and we hope that you have good luck on your search. Entitled Kid, aged around 14, 16, they believe, Mom, I want to go on the boat. You promised we were going to go on the boat. Why aren't we getting the boat? Entitled Parent to Two. I'm sorry, sweetie, sometimes there's bad people in the world who lie and don't do things they're supposed to like this lady. Entitled Kid Whatever. This sucks. See, you're ruining our day. My stepmother realizes this is a lost cause and just started walking back to my dad. Entitled Dad, you're both jerks. We're not leaving unless we get compensation. My dad, you're not getting anything. The entitled dad tried to throw a punch, but my dad pushed him back. My dad, get away from us. I am calling cops. My dad and stepmom locks all the doors and starts to call the police. My dad never calls the police unless his hand is forced. He's the type of person who will do whatever he can to resolve something without getting authorities involved. The entitled dad starts to take pictures of my dad's house, license plates, cars, and everything else he can photograph, which my stepmom noticed while my dad was on the phone with the cops. The cops confirm they were coming and will be there in 15 minutes. My dad and stepmom comes back out, and my stepmom flips nonsense when she sees her brand new VW covered with tobacco spit all around the white interior. She just goes inside after that to calm down. My dad takes care of it from there. My dad, the cops will be here in 15 minutes. Entitled Dad, no, they aren't. I know that you're just trying to scare us. We're not going to leave. My dad, I guess you can wait and see. My dad gets a text and grabs his phone. Are you filming me right now? That's illegal without my consent. It's illegal to be on my property without my consent. Screw you. You're going to regret this The entitled dad dashes to his truck and takes out these rubber mats and places them over his license plates, gets in the car and drives off. My dad was relieved and thought it was over. The cops arrived. He gave them a detailed police report of what happened. They asked for any pictures or photos, but my dad didn't have any, other than the text he had with the guy's contact information. The police collected what they needed and went on with their day. My dad and stepmom, again, relieved that it was all over. They got to bed and got a great night's sleep. Until the next day, my dad gets swarmed with calls. There's an ad on Craigslist of my dad's old Mercedes listed at $1,000 and is asking to be called and text at my dad's number and email. My dad had to inform everyone that it wasn't a real ad. They reported the post, but at that point, it had been up for multiple hours and hundreds of calls later. My dad and stepmom realized what happened. All the pictures he took were objects of theirs. The entitled dad the next day had another ad for my stepmom's brand new VW Beetle license plate, and all for $2,000. Call now. My dad and stepmom again were flooded with calls for the entire day, reported the post, and got little to no sleep in fear it would happen again. The entitled dad listed ads for the boat, bike, and truck, all being free over the course of the next week. My dad went to the police and saved all the ads, gave it to the police with their contact information, and they said again they would look into it. My dad just wanted peace. After another week of the entitled dad posting all my dad's things on Craigslist, it finally stopped. My dad and stepmom finally had their peace. I found out about it after this occurred and was livid. However, my dad was fine that it had finally stopped. He didn't want the wrath of this piece of trash again and just hope for the best for the next person.
My dad had to turn away countless people at this door, calling him in texts.
A lot of them were families, barely getting by and needing a truck or needing any form of transportation, like the bikes to go to work. It crushed my dad since he's very understanding, especially since they were strung along by the entitled dad, but knew he couldn't help them. However, this does end on a good note. The police got back to us stating that they arrested that entitled dad for something else entirely. They wouldn't go into details, but informed us that he won't be a problem for a very long time. I was at Aldi and there was a woman shopping by herself with a rather full cart. My first encounter, she had her cart sideways blocking most of the aisle, standing against one side and looking at food on the other side. I make my way past her, and of course, as soon as I'm close, she steps forward to get the food she was looking at. I politely do the oops, excuse me, and wait to pass. Not even bothered yet. Whatever. It happens all the time. Second time, I'm pushing my cart along the outside and she's about to pull in front of me. I can see it. She half goes without looking, but hesitates, and I stop because I think she's about to. But then she doesn't, so I start to go. And then she hesitates again and pushes right in front of me. I roll my eyes. The third time I see her, she parks it totally sideways and blocks the whole aisle between those island freezers and the wall. She leaves it unattended and goes to get something else. So in the middle of grumbling and reaching to move it, I instead put her latch into my cart, left my 3-4 items, took my quarter back, and scurried off to get a new cart. I don't think she had another quarter, as I saw her trying to push both awkwardly at the same time in different directions to the checkout. So I work at a zoo in the Midwest Jsut. It is my favorite place in the whole world. I have worked here as a volunteer, then as an intern, currently working at the membership desk and have applied to work with our education department. I've been working there since maybe I was 14 and know most of this zoo's inner workings better than my own home. I even have a few animals who recognize me for better or worse. We have an Australia exhibit. As an intern, I did a lot of work with the wallabies, as such a lot of them sort of recognize me and show greater comfortability with my presence, especially one of the younger females, Ruby. All of our wallabies are pretty cautious animals as they are in nature. Ruby, on the other hand, is much rambunctious. Our Australia exhibit is free range for them and a pair of black swans. It's lovely, and they have a bunch of scattered hangouts. Most of these spots are away from the path and away from guests, but one is very close to the door. Ruby likes to spend her time here. Her first day on exhibit, she walked up behind a 4-year-old and sniffed him while this kid petted her. I'm not shocked they're about the same size and hardly seem a threat, but she's also gone up to adults, pulled on a pocket flap, and scampered off. She frequently walks up to me and I talk to her while she stares at me. She is an unusual girl, but I love her to death and back. Now that I don't work down there anymore, I don't see her as often, but I like to make regular trips to say hello. She is a little bigger now than the photo provided, but wallabies don't get terribly big. She's still sweet as ever, and she will still come up to say hello. Recently, I'm down there squatting as I speak to her. She's looking at me. I'm happy as can be. It's not a terribly busy day. The weather is kind of cold, so there are maybe 10 groups in the entire zoo. I heard a mother and her 2 kids come in. I'm speaking to Ruby for a bit. I can hear her scoff and talking to her kids, when suddenly I hear someone running. I assume it's the kids. Ruby glances over, and I'm about to as well when I see the woman's foot collide with Ruby. I yelled in horror as Ruby went down. She twitched stunned by the unwarranted assault. I spring up and immediately am standing over her, shoving this woman away. I'm a good 6'2" and pretty overweight but reasonably strong. She already looks pissed. She's 4 foot at least and a bit of a pudgy woman. She begins screaming at me, entitled Mother.
How dare you touch me?
Me, you just kicked my wallaby. Yes, I said, she's one of my best friends, entitled Mother, your oversized robot rat. How dare you spread these lies to kids? You and your children need to leave right now. I'm not going anywhere. Not till you stop spreading your lies, you brat. Ruby at this point recovers and scampers off. The woman attempts to kick her by kicking between my legs and instead kicks me. Me, how you crazy witch, stop it, entitled Mother screams incomprehensibly at the top of her lungs. Geez, the lungs on that woman. And continues doing so, with nothing I say being heard, until our awesome security guard shows up a keeper in tow. Security guard? What's wrong? She okay? Did the swan bite her? Black swan bites were the only animal attacks we really ever had. Me, she kicked Ruby. Keeper. What? Security guard. Who? The walleye? The wallaby. The entitled Mother shouts. This brat just assaulted me. Arrest him right now. Security guard deals with psychos like this every once in a while. Mostly anti-maskers, though. Miss, you need to come with me. About this time, I realize the kids are gone. One is over at the kookaburra enclosure. The other is nowhere to be seen. He apparently wandered off to the petting zoo and got spit on by the llama, which he thought was the funniest thing which caught the attendant down. There's a tension as this rat was alone. We were trying to drag her and her other kid out who kept making kookaburra calls, best to his ability. She yelled about our lies, then suddenly took off and ran at one of the large groups of wallabies. Now, this is a bad idea because the wallabies are now on high alert, and there were a couple of the babies and 2 pregnant females in this group. This set them off. 3 of them begin attacking her by kicking at her similar to how a kangaroo does but less effective. She starts screaming as they growl and kick at her. Such a glorious sight as she runs back to the entrance of the exhibit, wailing. A couple wallabies giving chase, bless their tiny hearts. Later, the security guard pieced together that she was some flat earth fanatic and apparently Australia, and turned everything in the Australia exhibit is not real, justifying her kicking Ruby. But we technically had no right to hold her and call the cops. We could, as our policy stated, eject her until I mentioned she kicked me. So cops were called and she's dragged off after we explained to the cops what this witch did. She got assault charges and animal abuse charges from what I was told. Now I'd say that was justice served normally, but I can't help but feel very much hatred for her. I have become aware Ruby is now super skittish even more than the other wallabies. She got a nasty bruise in her side. It's hard to see from afar, but after a month it persists. She still comes up to me, but only if no one else is around. During the day, she tends to hide that which killed Ruby's spirit, and for that I hope she rots in hell. In my youth, my family was rather poor, lower middle class. My dad, who could not read or write, worked graveyard shift at a creamery. My mother, a housewife, was very active in the parent, teacher association, and other community activities. My dad's job paid the bills and put staple foods on the table, but left no room for comfort expenses. As soon as I was old enough, I got a paper route. The monthly funds went towards padding our family budget. One simple joy we took pleasure in was once a month we would splurge on a quiet salad and pizza dinner at the local Pizza Hut. This story takes place 1987, 1988 there-ish. I was about 14 at the time. We arrived one Sunday afternoon at the local pizza parlor. We went in, we sat down at our regular table, and we waited for the waitress to come take our order. We talked. We waited. We cracked jokes and waited some more. We started to realize something was not quite right after 10, 15 minutes. We had heard the phone ring a few times, but other than that, there was none of the usual sounds of bustling workers in the kitchen area. Curious, I slid out of the bench and approached the cashier's counter. Looking around in the back area, I could not see a living soul. Hello? Hello? I called out, nothing. Anybody back there? Again, no response. Now I was feeling that distinct edgy feeling one gets while watching a horror movie. I returned to my parents and informed them what I had discovered, or should say, lack of discovery. Check the restrooms? My dad suggested. My mom agreed. She checked the women's room while Dad checked the men's. No one. Now we were all very concerned and more than a little frightened. We had heard on TV and in newspaper stories how sometimes a robbery goes bad, and it was only discovered when employee bodies were found. Call the police? Mom suggested, pointing at the phone on the wall, which chose that very moment to ring out loud, making all of us jump in fright. The freezer, I said over the ringing phone. What? Mom asked. The freezer, in horror movies. That's where the bodies are always at, right?
I'll look, I said.
No, you will not. My mom responded with authority. Your father will check it. My beloved father, the man I admired most in the world, pointed at me and said, he runs faster. In the end, I did indeed go behind the counter. By the simple fact my parents were too busy arguing over who would go check in the back to notice me walking off. First, I armed myself with an impressively large and surprisingly sharp round pizza cutter. Sitting on a counter next, I checked the entirety of the back area. The back door was locked from the inside. Then I checked the manager's office cubicle. Finally, I approached the freezer. I knew what I was going to find. I've seen this scene in plenty of movies. By this point, both my parents noticed my absence and had joined me, staring at the freezer door with morbid anticipation. I grabbed the handle, pulled, and threw the door open. And sure enough, there staring back at us was boxes of pizza-making supplies, but no bodies. What? I was, truth to tell, morbidly disappointed. Nobody. No bodies. Nothing. No workers. We were the only ones in the pizza parlor. Hello? Came a call from the front. I'm pretty sure if a little more effort had been put into the jump scare, we would have hit our heads on the ceiling. Quickly, we approached the front. I recall my heart racing a mile thinking an employee had arrived, only to find a middle-aged gentleman waiting along with his wife by the wait-to-be-seated sign. Oh, there you are, he said. We would like a table for 2. I'm sorry, sir, my mother replied. We don't work here. Okay, but we want a table for 2. There is nobody here. We checked. Mom explained. Yes, I can see the place is empty. So, can we have a table in the back? The man pressed. We don't work here. As far as we can tell, there's nobody here that's supposed to be here. Mom further elaborated. So where can we sit? Oh, just find a place to park your butts. The place is empty. My dad butted in, my father bluntly honest and always absurdly practical. Honey, just call the police. Let them know what we found. With that decided, my dad scuttled off to the salad bar. Let it be known, my father was never one to let an opportunity for a meal go to waste. It took over an hour for a police officer to arrive. The reason it took so long, as the officer would explain later, was that dispatch head down graded our call to non-emergency status. During the wait, however, we had to deal with a few things. Waiter, we would like menus, please. My dad, being the helpful sort with a decidedly odd sense of humor, gave a couple menus. 1 sweet tea and 1 unsweet with lemon, please. I was already hitting the fountain drink machine. I was there. It was there. And Mom had found the coffee supplies. So I brought them their drinks. We would like 2 dinner salads and a large pepperoni pizza. Dad pointed to the plates by the salad bar and told them, might be a few minutes on the pizza. Gotta wait for an employee to show up first, but go ahead and eat as much salad as you want. Then one of the nearby churches let out, hello, there are 4 of us. Hi. We got 2 more coming. I tried calling several times. Can I please get 2 large pizzas to go? By the time the police officer arrived, my mom and I were effectively running the parlor along with a guy who came in from the church with his family. He said he once worked at the other Pizza Hut in town while in college. Mom took orders, I delivered drinks and food, I got tips, and the young man made the pizzas. My dad, he was busy eating and chatting with the customers. As for people paying for their food, neither my father nor I could calculate our way past 10 fingers and 10 toes. Mom, on the other hand, was one of those super annoying people of her generation that could calculate a whole string of numbers in her head faster than you could type on a digital calculating machine. Really annoying. So she figured out the amount, including tax, and had them pay with a check. The checks were slid under the cash register. The register itself we did not even try and touch. When the officer arrived, we were quite happy to recognize him as one of the officers my dad was friends with. Back then, police officers on the night shift could come by the creamery my dad worked at and get free ice cream from the employees' break room. Dad would often take time to shoot the breeze with them for a few minutes. Officer Shield, as I will call him, immediately recognized my dad and asked him what was going on. My dad explained the situation and I butted in, sounding a little disappointed, I'm sure, that we didn't find any dead bodies in the freezer. Officer Shield first went to the register, opened it, and confirmed that there was still cash in the till box, then walked around the inside and outside of the building. No signs whatsoever of any kind of disturbance. He called it in and waited for orders from higher up. In the meantime, never let it be said a police officer is willing to pass up an opportunity for free food. 20 or 30 minutes later? I can't recall, but eventually he got a call back telling him to lock up the place. They were trying to contact the owner of that franchise. But problem, he couldn't find the keys to the parlor, and the main doors had to be locked from either the outside with a key or the doors lock from the inside with the latch, then exit out the back door, which required a key to lock the bolt from outside. Officer Shield called that fact back in. A few minutes later, the lead officer on shift arrived to evaluate the situation. What did he find? A pizza parlor half full of customers happily chowing down on pizza. When he asked, understandable confused, why Officer Shield called in his report saying there were no employees on the premises when clearly customers were being served, at which point I.O. so happily piped in while handing off a pizza to go to a waiting customer. Oh, we don't work here. We're just being helpful. So eventually, the police managed to contact the owner after a couple of hours. The owner contacted the manager, and the manager came storming in. Lots of anger and confusion. The manager, in a fluster, tried to accuse my parents and I of theft of company property, but Officer Shield would have none of that and pointed out the checks, the order slips, and the list of anything we used. Then he pointed out the fact we could have just left the place empty, and thieves could have ransacked the parlor. She backed down and focused on contacting the workers that were supposed to be on duty. Turns out the assistant manager had found out that very morning her boyfriend was having an affair. She had then gone on a tirade, taking her anger out on her male employees, verbally abusing them. They chose not to take the abuse and walked out. The assistant manager then just decided to up and quit, leaving the shop wide open. As for my parents and I, we were informed by Officer Shield very firmly that we should, for whatever reason, find ourselves in such a situation again. It would be far more helpful if we refrained from being helpful. And yes, we did pay for our food and drinks, but we still got banned for life from that parlor. The story. About 2-3 months ago, I stopped in a Shell gas station for gas and to change a couple of light bulbs for the company van. Since I had finished my delivery route and I wasn't pressed with time, I decided to check the air, oil levels, etc. I start with filling the van with petroleum, my original intent, and later move the van on the side so that we don't block a pump for no reason. One of the employees from the gas station came to assist me with changing the bulbs. A few minutes later, the second employee came to check if he could help. The guys were amazing for helping. In the meantime, more customers arrive at the station, so the guys go to assist them in between assisting me too. Suddenly it got really busy. As I do not want to waste any time, I wear my gloves and I start checking what the employees have not checked yet. Water levels, oil levels, etc. As I was checking the water level for the wash on my windshield wipers, I felt the change in the air. I felt the pressure change and a faint re-scream could be heard escaping the buzzing city noises. I thought nothing of that and I kept focusing on my van. Then it happened. A light huffing and puffing, the sound of the impatient shoe hitting the floor. The sounds of the busy city went silent for a second, and then I heard it. Wild Corinne. Yeah, excuse me. I slowly turned to check to the place from where the question voiced. I turned slowly thinking, is she calling me? Nah, it can't be. But curiosity has me now, so I have to know. I see a lady next to her car, I guess, approaching me. Wild Corinne, 20 euro gas. I was visibly confused in location shell. I look behind me. There is nobody to be seen except me. I point to myself. Wild Corinne. Yes, I am talking to you. It will take 2 minutes from your time. Then you can go back to whatever you do. Miss, I do not know how to pump gas. They have you here only to check or change oil. At this point, we need to set up the scene a bit better. The employees are wearing red t-shirts with yellow letters like the logo of the gas station. I'm still wearing my work uniform, which consists of a light green t-shirt with a stamp with my company logo front and back. I have just realized what is happening, and I decided instead of getting angry with the wild Karen that expects my reply before she howls and asks for my manager. I'm going to enjoy this. Let's be honest, it was a rare opportunity, that a wild Karen that gave me enough time to process the situation before she careened. I had to enjoy it. It just happened. Don't overthink it. Originally, I wanted to check the lights. Wild Karen, are you kidding me? Come now, put 20 euro gas into my car. I'm busy. I have other stuff to do. I stop what I'm doing and just stand next to the van. That has the same name as the t-shirt that I'm wearing. I cross my hands and I get ready for the conversation. I want to remind you that I have the same color and name on the t-shirt I'm wearing as the van. Thankfully, I am finishing work in about 30 minutes so I can go early home today. Good. Until you finish your shift, can you put gas on my car? I do not think that this is legal. I do not know if there are any regulations or not, but didn't really care. To put gas? For me, yes. Are you kidding me? I do not have a reason to joke with you. I do not even know you. Are all the employees here useless? Like you? We got 1 or 2 that are worse than me. But why do you ask? Did you hear anything? No, I can see you. At that point, one of the employees arrived as he probably heard her yelling, Employee? Hi? How much gas do you want? At last, someone that knows what to do around here. Employee was in an even more confused state. Is everything okay? Did something happen? Yes, mister, over here, pointing at me. I didn't want to service me, and he tried to be cute with me. Not losing the opportunity, I interrupt. I am on the stationery market. I am not cute with you. Are you playing me for a fool? Miss, the gentleman here is a customer. At that point, I watch her getting ready for another round. She's getting a deep breath, and as she is ready to start again, suddenly she stops, looks at the employee, then turns her gaze to me, and then back to the employee with confused eyes. And she stops, probably realizing what happened. The gas pump stops. Employee, Miss, it's 20 euro. She gives the 20 euro, starts the car, and as she leaves the gas station, she looks at me with her eyes filled with anger and confusion. I just kept on smiling and waving goodbye to the wild Karen. It's not often that you have time to enjoy an encounter with a wild Karen in the hectic life of a busy city. Employee, I thought that you were chatting. I didn't realize what happened. Neither did she. Note, this happened a while ago. So, some background. I live in a small Midwest town. I'm a disabled Army veteran who gets Meals on Wheels. Everyone, including the mayor, police chief, fire chief, city council members, and most of the city employees and residents, know me. I love watching the birds and squirrels, and so do my puppies. I have a large picture window. I use a heavy-duty cane to get around due to service-connected disabilities. I have severe PSD, social anxiety disorder, and depression. I don't deal well with confrontation. I'm outside in my front yard filling the squirrel bird feeder with peanuts and sunflower seeds. I've already filled up the bird feeders. They're hanging from their hooks. I have a little bucket that I use to fill the feeder. My feeders are well within my property lines and about 10 feet from the house, so far away from the street or sidewalk. All of a sudden, I hear the call of the wild Karen. Excuse me? What do you think you are doing? Was all I could stammer out. I had never met this woman before, and I knew a lot of people. Karen then screamed, "You can't put out bird feeders in this city." I was told so. I've lived in the city and my house for over 20 years, so I know it wasn't true. But about a half a mile from my house was a new development, so perhaps they had, rules that wouldn't allow it. I've lived here I tried to explain, but Karen wasn't having any of it. No, you need to take them down right now. Her friend tried to hush her and say, just call the city and let them handle it. No, I yelled back. They are staying. I was a sergeant in the Army and my voice carries. People came out of their houses to see what was going on. Then Karen did a really stupid move. She came onto my property and tried to take off my bird feeders. I blocked her and she shoved me and I fell down to the ground. I swung my cane at her and hit her hard. Karen screamed, "You assaulted me!" I yelled back, "You are trespassing and you pushed me. I'm gonna call the police." Before Karen or I could call the police, there were 3 police SUVs on the scene. One vehicle was marked Community Service Officer and Police Chief was in it. He was delivering Meals on Wheels. A disabled Air Force vet 4 houses down got them, and so did I. The police chief saw the whole thing and called for backup. She assaulted me and she has bird feeders, which aren't allowed. Police chief, ignoring her, asks how I'm doing and if I need an ambulance and to go to the hospital. I'm on blood thinners, and when Karen pushed me, I fell really hard. Yes, I fell very hard, and I'm on blood thinners, I replied. He radios for an ambulance. He gets my lunch, puts it into the fridge, gets my purse and keys, calms the puppies down, and puts the radio on. They've gone bonkers, seeing me get hurt. Karen, now in handcuffs? Why am I being arrested? For trespassing and assault, replied the police chief. I saw it with my own eyes, and I have dash cam video of it. Sir, I piped up. I have security cameras, and they will have footage as well. He nodded. I was whisked off to the nearby hospital, non-VA. I didn't have health insurance. I had to be treated at the V Medical Center, or I would have to pay the bills myself. Due to the severity of the fall, I had to stay in IQ for several days. I had some horrible bruises and pain afterwards. I worried about how I was going to pay the hospital bills, who was going to take care of my puppies, etc. As I have no family nearby. I have a special lockbox for police and the fire department with the house key so they can enter in case of emergency. Between the police and fire department and neighbors, my puppies were spoiled rotten. Walks, treats, and fed. And Karen, not only did she get jail time, but then she had to do 500 hours of community service. The judge knew me and threw the book at her. She also had to pay 100 of my medical expenses, including the ambulance ride. Super karma. During her jail time, she had to come to my house, dressed in her orange jail jumpsuit and do yard work, including mowing the lawn, raking leaves, pruning, and picking up my dog's poop in the backyard, and refilling the bird feeders. Oh, how she hated to fill the feeders. Note, apparently Karen lived in the new development, which had HOA rules. They were McMansions. I didn't see her after she finished her community service, and from what I've been told, She lost her job and her rich husband divorced her. I'm not shedding a tear. So Karen's out there. Leave me my birds, squirrels, and their feeders alone.